Are you planning to start learning React.js in 2025? Are you aiming to become a front-end engineer? If so, this video will helpful for you. I will be sharing React.js roadmap clearly organized into basics, intermediate, and advanced level. Before diving into React, make sure you have solid understanding of the basics of HTML, CSS, the JavaScript, Code.js, ES6 features, and let's get started. Let's expand the basics. So first, to get started to React in coding, you need either any one of them. Create React app at vite. So let's open your favorite editor or terminal. Just install Node.js. That is a mandatory one. So once you install in Node.js, just run npm create vite latest. Give a name for your app. I'll give this command in the description. Template at React. So once you create, so it will create the folder with the basic necessary React.js code. So once it install, just move to this your folder and run npm run dev. So from there you can start your application. So here we are not going to concentrate on how you are going to execute and those things. Here we are going to see what are all the things you can cover to complete the React.js. And you have to know the basics of components. So React's strength lies in components. It's a reusable piece of your UI. There are two types of components, functional component and class components. So in old days, when initial days of React.js, most people prefer to use class components. But nowadays, all the companies or even React communities are prefer using React components only. Okay, so components have life cycle. So life cycle means when a component attached to a DOM document object model and when removed from the DOM. So those in React way it is saying mounting and unmounting. Okay, and React update is any state values updated, this event will be fired. So component did mount, did will unmount, did update, and some other life cycle methods are there. So you need to learn the life cycle methods and passing props to components and its own states. So same thing for functional. So functions handling the life cycle with use effect hooks. So hooks will come into the later part. So functional components achieving this using the hooks. That's the use effect hook. The function is the callback function. So if you give a empty array, then it acts like a component did mount. If you give a value, I mean state variables, whenever that variable update, these functions will be executed. So you need to understand these two difference, and you need to know how to pass props to the components and states. Okay, so for class components, props and state has in the class object this dot props, this dot break. But though it is a functional components, the functions argument having the props, and you need to, for the state you have to use state. So first stage for the React is you need to know class and functional components, and after that you need to know the JSX. So you can write HTML inside the JavaScript. That is a JS, JavaScript XML. Okay, so the React.js will compile and convert this to the actual JS code. But when you write, you can write as a HTML. React using a virtual DOM. You need to know about virtual DOM and JSX. And so when you write HTML, so there are multiple ways to write HTML. So here you can render list. So here you have an array dot map. It returns a div element. So if 10 array elements items are there, then 10 div will be returned to this. And conditional rendering, let's say you hit on API calls and you are expecting the data to be load. Is it loading time? You can show the loading option, and then after that you can show the content. That is a conditional rendering. So React DOM will handle this. That's how React interact with the browser DOMs. So this is the React DOM package available as part of React. And hooks is pretty basic now. So without understanding hook, you cannot start go ahead with the React.js. Master the foundational hooks, that is use state and use effect, and you can write your own custom hooks also. Advanced hooks like use memo, use callback, these are for performance. So React always re-render when a state property values updated. So let's say if in a component you have some complex computations and some functions you have, every re-render the calculations will be recalculated every time, and functions will be created every time. So to avoid this, you can use memo and use callback. There are other advanced hooks also there, use reducer, hook, layout. So for basically to get started with the React, so you need to know the components, and you need to know how to write JSX in the JavaScript, and you need to know the hooks. These are the pretty basics when you start learning React.js. And when it comes to intermediate, there are a lot of things. Okay, so first we'll see the state management. So each component has their own states. It's a private to that component. So class component having this dot state, and this is a state variable it contains. This start set state will update the state. And same for functional components is hooks. Using use state hooks, you have to give some default value. This function returns two variables. One is with a state variable and another one is set state function. So when you call that, the state value will be updated. So these hooks and these two are tie up with only one component. Let's say throughout the application you want to share some states. For that, React itself gave its own context API. So you need to create context and use context inside the components so that that state variable will be available throughout the applications. Only for the childrens of those parents. So this will avoid the props drilling. So these are inbuilt React.js state managements. Okay, class component states, hooks, and the context API. If your application is growing, so you need a global state management. You need to have a store to save the state values, and any components anywhere it can update, access, and delete the values. So that's for the global state management. Redux is the top most preferable package from the React community, and just stand is getting popular now. So we can learn the Redux first to understand what is it. Has an action reducer and it has one store to dispatch the action, and you can utilize Redux toolkits if you are using asynchronous with Redux. So this is state management. Components own states, private states, and the global states also you can have it. So React is mostly using for single page application. So for that, React you can use a router, React router. So React router is a library for handling navigation and routing in React application. It enables you to create single page application where users can navigate between different views or pages without requiring a full page reload. So it manages the rendering components based on the current URL, providing a seamless user experience for a single page application. There are different types of routes. So nested routes inside the routes. Okay, that is nested route. Dynamic route is route having a dynamic params, say slash user ID. So this will be the dynamic values for each user so that you can access through routes params. And protected routes, let's say your application having admin pages, only particular authorized users can access that route, means you can protect, there is option to protect the routes based on the values. And programmatic navigation, you can change your application inside any actions. You can use navigate hook. And actually, so fundamentally React routes manages browser history for the application, like go back, forward, replace current route. And asynchronous operation for API calls is Axios and fetch. You can have that Axios call inside the use effect hooks, or you can use in the Redux code, React code, Apollos anywhere, and you can handle the API calls and gracefully for the applications. Form handling, there are two types Reacts mentioned: uncontrolled components, controlled component. Uncontrolled component means native forms without any React state. Controlled forms, let's say here input element is there, so value is tied with the React state variable, and on change event you can update the state, and there are some other events also there, on submit, on click. So all these things are React based for the component. So controlled components, so using that you can get the form value and submit it to the browser without using a DOM element directly. So you can use the state and get the values. And styles in React, so you can use CSS inside the JS also. That is a styled components or third-party libraries like Tailwind CSS, React Bootstrap, MUI. And testing, for unit testing you can use just an end-to-end testing. There are other test cases also there. These are most used testing framework in the React community. So error boundary. So if a resource fail to load, let's say if a component having a error, instead of breaking entire application, you can wrap the component inside the error boundary to handle the errors gracefully. You can show that error only on particular component location instead of crashing the whole application. And suspense is, let's say if you wrap a component inside the suspense, it allows you to pause rendering until the resource is ready. You can define what resource it is expecting, and while waiting you can give a fallback UI, let's say loading or spinner icon or something you can show in the fallback. So TypeScript, now most of the React communities are trying to use TypeScript, primarily important for mid and large projects for the type security. And there are some third-party UI library. Instead of you writing your own button, drop down models, everything, you can utilize third-party library, Material UI, Chakra UI, Satsian UI. So instead of reinventing wheel, you can utilize those third-party. So if you know these, you're mostly ready to write a good React application. So there are advanced. So for advanced, I'm added a performance optimization. I already discussed like use callback and use memo for avoiding re-render and recreation of functions and calculations logic. And code splitting. Code splitting is a technique used to improve performance of an application by breaking the application's code into smaller and more manageable chunks. Instead of loading the entire, though it is a single page application, instead of loading the whole entire application at once, only the code needed for the current view or functionality is loaded first. That will reduce the initial load time and improve user experience. So react.lazy is given in the from the React itself. So it will lazy load the component at the time of it when it needs. And there are some other ways also for code chunking. You can use the webpack or other library to make each component a chunk by chunk, and you can load based on demand. For that you can use the build tool, pack and write, and the tree shaking. Let's say dependencies also will be load if that components need that. So that tree shaking also you can use. Profiling Chrome dev tool, you can debug and for memory usage, is there any memory leaks or using high memory usage, you can profile using the Chrome dev tool and the React developer tools. You can install the React developer tool extension in the Chrome or Edge. You can debug when compared to normal debugging tool available inside the Chrome. So this one very specific to React. So from the React 19, actually, it introduces a lot of new concepts. Not deprecate in the sense you don't need to use this callback and use memo in the React 19 there, because by default all the functions and memoized everything by default from the React 19. So that is doing by the React compiler. The compiler will take care what are all the performance improvement can do for the existing application, and it can compile and provide the final output. And React 19 now it is support widely in the server side rendering. So you can write the React.js code in the server. So that on the server it will render and will provide you the HTML and needed for the and new hooks for performance improvements like use action state, use form status, or for the forms. So after learning basics and intermediate steps, you just concentrate on the React 19 also. So, but most of the applications are written in React 18. Recently, React 19 were launched, so it will take time to adopt for all the companies and those things. So you need to know this also. That's why I made the React 19 in the advanced stage. So after learning the React hooks, state management, Redux, everything. So the advanced one is a meta framework like Next.js and Remix. So what it will do is it will take care of all the effort needed for code splitting, server side component supports, caching, and best way to route and performance optimization. Everything will be take care of this meta framework. So this is more advanced. If you know this, you can only concentrate on your application instead of everything doing manually in your side. So that's it. These are three groups. So basics, intermediate, and advanced for the React. Take your time, practice it every day in the React by building it. And thank you.